Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. How are you? I just wanted to give you an update on how the situation is going. I wrote a public post on my Patreon page that is accessible to anyone who wants to read it, some details, some images, things of that nature. The situation today, it's just not good, and it hasn't been good for days. We are completely cut off from our home. I couldn't go back home to try and defend it, even if I tried. There's just no way. The fire service and the police have cut our road completely, and we just are in no position to return home. So, hey Anna, so we are pretty much stuck where we are, and our option is to leave here. We are booked into this sort of like little farm stay accommodation thingy here. We've been booked in here for 3 days. A coven sister of mine is looking after our puppy just to make life a little bit easier, because it was so challenging trying to find accommodation with a dog. And even a little puppy, he's a little Jack Russell, it was really hard. And so just not having him here meant we had more access to more variety of accommodation, and that, you know, was suiting us, because we're now in a relatively cheap, sort of accommodation setting. It's a little 3-bedroom place. I'm here with my 70-year-old father. I have my husband, my 3 children, and myself. So obviously we can't just all stay in one tiny little place. I mean, a tiny home is fine, but we manage to have beds for everybody in our tiny home, and that's usually not what you get in public, or, you know, in this type of accommodation setting. Anyway, I'm absolutely exhausted. I go to bed at night wondering if my house is going to be there when I wake up in the morning, and I wake up in the morning dreading looking at the news, because I feel like my house might have burnt down. There's just this, there's something inside of me that tells me that my house is going to be spared, but at the same time, every time I turn on the news, like, that's all you hear. It's literally, there's the TV, the band of yellow, that is the constant update from the fires, and emergency warning in place, emergency warning here, emergency warning there. We have been keeping up to date with all the live updates that are being offered now at the Huonville Centre. There is a PCYC evacuation area that's almost now housing 300 evacuees, and the place is growing and resources are getting stretched quite thin. There's also an evacuation place. There are a refuge there for animals, potentially larger animals like horses specifically, but they're allowing dogs and things like that there as well. So if possible, we might be able to pick up Snowy and take him there if we do end up at the refuge centre. The thing is, the fire seems to be spreading. It's now behind Franklin, and Franklin's not too far away from Huonville. When I did a live broadcast the other day on Instagram, I couldn't believe my eyes. There's the mountain behind, the Woolworths car park, and it was just plumes of smoke, and it looked like cloud. So to anybody who didn't know what was going on, it looked like clouds, but it was actually smoke from the fire, and it was smoke from the fire that was coming up and out, and it was just insane. It was ridiculous. And I had no other option but to stand there and watch. And it was hard to watch. I was in town for the shortest period of time. I went to my home. I walked in there and everything was yellow and everything was orange, and it was just like ashy. Ash was falling down. And my husband had this panic look on his face, saying, "You have to get out of here. The fire could be just around that mountain and your access is going to get cut." And I'm looking at him in a panic going, "Well, you're here. Your access is going to get cut as well." So it's been a really tense time. Yesterday, the smoke was so bad that here, 85 kilometres away from where the fire is, I was crossing the Tasman Bridge, which would be roughly 60 k's from where the fire is, because I'm in Richmond at the moment. I was crossing the Tasman Bridge, and visibility was like 500 metres on either side. You couldn't see anything. So the smoke had engulfed the city, the capital city of Hobart, and reached all the way out here to Richmond, where I'm staying, which is 85 kilometres away. And so, like, the smoke in the center of the action, which is basically the Huon Valley, it was ridiculous. Like, when I got out of the car, the smoke was so thick, it was burning my eyes. People were coming up to our property to let us know that, they were forming some kind of a frontline, a kind of defensive, and they're masked up and they're like fully kitted out, and it was intense. And they were basically saying, we can help you. You just let us know if you see fire here. Keep an eye out this way. My husband ended up staying there that night. We got evacuated. The idea was for us to go to a house about 4 kilometers down the road that had an easier access. And as we are setting up at that place, the emergency services sent direct text messages to our phones saying we all needed to evacuate. So staying there, that 4 kilometers away, wasn't an option. Following that, we see like this cavalcade of fire trucks, and you can start to hear the helicopters and the police and the ambulance services, and they were just rolling on past. And we had this like bird's eye view of what was going on because we were positioned in this house in Port Huon, which is not safe. And so we ended up having to evacuate to Huonville, and me and my dad and my 3 kids and a car full of staff. I was like, well, where do we go? And I started ringing around to see if I could find accommodation. And I ended up back at a place that, I'd spent a little bit of time at before, because it was one of the only places that weren't booked out. And that's the other thing, because so many people are being forced to evacuate, then accommodation is really slim at the moment. And the SES have been doing a tremendous service, especially for the elderly, knocking on people's doors. My father's an older person. They sent messages and all these types of alerts to him. And for people who are registered in the area, they literally walked up to their door and said, it's time for you to get out, sir or madam, because it's not safe here. And people with respiratory issues, young children, older people with or without respiratory conditions, the smoke was beyond inhalation levels. You couldn't see, you just couldn't see. So you can imagine what's going into your lungs. And it was scary. And as I'm standing there in this orange, smoky haze with ash just falling on me, and my kids' panicked look on their faces, it was really scary. My husband left yesterday morning to pick up a pump because we are on tank water. We are off grid, and he came to pick up a pump, and they wouldn't let him back in because the roads were just completely cut. And there's more to that story that I'll tell at another time, but basically they were only letting people through on extenuating circumstances, so they had to have a bloody good reason to get through. So some reasons that were listed were people who had left their life support medication, for instance, or super important documents, and it was a case of you can go in but you have to come out. So there was no, I'm going to defend my home. So if those people who are there defending their home, they can't leave, otherwise they're not going to be allowed back in. And so they say, they being the fire department here in Tasmania, they say that the situation can go on for weeks unless we get a southerly wind or a significant amount of rain. This fire is not going to be as controllable. Now, to give you some statistics, and this is what I wrote about on my GoFundMe page. I've got some details there for you all. I've got some satellite imagery for you all, but you can have a look. There are 532 fire personnel on the ground. Some are from New Zealand, some are from Australia. A big bird, a big bird, as in a big plane carrying water, has come from the United States, I believe, but I don't have the details on that to help to water bomb. The visibility for helicopters can be good one day and bad the next, or good one morning and then bad that afternoon. And so it's extraordinarily difficult to try and douse the land that is so, so, so dry. I mean, there's so much fuel lying around. One of our tourist attractions in the Huon Valley, which is the Tarhoon Airwalk, that allows you to walk through the treetops and have a look at this World Heritage listed old growth forest, has been like severely damaged by fire. And the latest update this afternoon was that the fires were impacting urban infrastructure in my area. So Geeveston was one of the places that was listed, and that's where we are. If you look on this information, if you look at this information carefully, you will see the word 4-foot road pop up from time to time. I live off 4-foot road. So 4-foot road is enormously long, and it links up to Fairy Falls towards the end of 4-foot road, and that is exactly where the fire is. So it's actually quite close to our land. We have a 4-acre cleared area, and around us is just bush. And because we live in Tasmania, you can't fell trees unless you have a bloody good reason for it. You need a permit to. And so we just have bushland, dry bushland, and firewood and a fire shed and fuel and all these types of things directly around our property. And all it would take would be one tiny little ember to float over, land on the dry grass, and for things to pop up. It would just start a little fire. Whereas if somebody's there to manage it, just to throw a mop over it or a bucket of water or something, that could mean the difference between a house, surviving or a house burning down. I'm not trying to be like a disaster monger here, but every time I look at the news, it's bad news. It's just always bad news, and the fire seems to be spreading at a rapid rate. We are at a red level emergency, and all day long we've been fielding calls from friends and from neighbours and from people in the community, and we're basically at this position where we pay for accommodation here, and we're not going to be able to afford to shell out every night for accommodation. We've already secured accommodation for I think it's about 7 nights. So our 7 nights is complete. I haven't slept in my home for a week now. My children were camping for a few days before that, and we want to know what's happening with our home. When my husband left the property the other day, he came out to get a water pump, and he left fuel ready in the driveway to be able to fuel up these water pumps. The reason why he needed a water pump is because we live off tank water, as in rainwater tank, and so there's no water pressure there. It's not the same as groundwater or road, or you know what I mean. It's road water or groundwater. I don't know what you call it. It's not plumbed in that way. So there's no water pressure. So if you were to turn the tap on, you just get this little slow trickle. So the water pump helps to hasten the flow of water, and it creates a bit more pressure. And it can also help to shift water from one tank to another. So we have one pump down there already, but because we have 6 water tanks, we could use a second one, especially in this sort of disaster prevention situation. We have ample buckets there at the moment, and we have ample buckets, and about as much as we can do is to have someone stand there and keep a vigil. And that's exactly what my husband did on the day before he came out here. He was out there all day fire managing and trying to get rid of debris and trying to get rid of the risks that might be on the outskirts. But there's not much that one can do because we are on a bush block and everything is dry, and that's because it's summer here and the temperatures are soaring at the moment. And so he set his alarm every 2 hours. He was up every 2 hours, walking the 4-acre perimeter, making sure that there was nothing alight, there was no embers, nothing like that. Now we live off grid, like I've already said many times, and many of you already know. But the easement, the access road to our off grid property it's pretty narrow and it's very bumpy. It's very rough, and so not every type of vehicle can get up there, and so it's not a road that is very accommodating to, say, a fire truck, in which case our property is more or less considered undefendable, because a fire truck can't technically go all the way up there. It doesn't have access to a steady stream of water, and it could potentially do a UE, but it would have to mow down a lot of like tree and plant matter in order to do that, which in an emergency situation I wouldn't blink an eye at, quite frankly. I'd be devastated if that happened, because there's lavender and roses and raspberry and all these types of things growing up there, but priorities at the end of the day. And yeah, it's just a very bleak situation. Now my husband's worried sick because they wouldn't let him go back in there, and he has fuel. He specifically left fuel to to go out, get the pump, and then come straight back. And so he knows in his head, he's like, I've got fuel just sitting there. I've got fuel, and that's the situation. And so I jumped on here to let you know the situation. Here's my little rouge. Okay, yeah, you can just put one on. You get Savvy to put one on you, okay? So I've been trying to, I bought Junior Monopoly for my kids, and colouring in pencils and colouring in books and things like that. I bought some of their technology, but we don't have a very strong Wi-Fi signal here, so the technology is not really working all that well. And so it's sing-along time and charades and card games and Junior Monopoly and all that kind of stuff, and just out and about. I'm trying to treat the experience, especially for their benefit, like it's a holiday, because they are on school holidays. So it's a lot easier to keep them happy. So they have been consuming a lot more sweets than they usually do, and my heart breaks for them. My daughter said to me yesterday, Mum, I really like this little bag. They love Smiggle. She said, I really love this little bag. Can I have this little bag? And I said, honey, I've given you so many bags. Like, she really does. She has so many bags. And she's like, yeah, but all my bags are going to burn. And I thought to myself, oh, it broke my heart. I said, you don't know that. And we have to think positively, and everything's probably going to be all right, because we're in a really, really nice little spot there. And it's emotionally taxing, the not knowing, and every day. And oh my God, Gordon and we speak thousands of times a day, because Gordon and we're neighbours. We don't live very far away. His partner had to fly out. He actually wrote an article on Rune Soup yesterday, so go over to Rune Soup and have a look at what he's put up there, and I've contributed today to that a little bit, to give that perspective. And he's got some great links on his. I've got some photography and stuff like that on mine, but we're both trying to make sense of it all, and we're trying to guess. He's got a huge community of occultists behind him that are praying and doing their thing, and praying's not the right word, but doing their thing, and I do as well. And then just before, I got a message from my beautiful best friend, Alora, and she said that Veronica Jude, who is a member of our community here on YouTube, Veronica Jude felt so compelled that she established a GoFundMe to help support me with my accommodation issues at the moment, mostly because I don't know exactly what we're going to do accommodation wise. I can probably handle accommodation for a couple more days, if not a week, but ideally I don't know when I'm going to be allowed back home. And if I'm allowed back home, I don't know what kind of a home I'm going to be returning to. I want to emphasize something here, and that is that my house hasn't burned yet. My house is in extreme danger of burning. It is completely cut off. The access to my home is completely cut off. If I wanted to go there, they would not let me in. So I am homeless at the moment, as homeless as a person can be. Now, I'm not trying to make a big drama out of this, but accommodation is my number one priority, because I have 3 little ones. I also have to continue to work. I have things that I need to do.
Can you help me? Savvy didn't do this There's too stuck.
Okay, just tell her that I told her to help you, please, that I asked her very nicely. So when I was told before that that people were just absolutely imbued with a sense of support to help me, I didn't know that this was happening, and I had no idea, and I'm so blown away. Excuse me, I'm just going to raise my voice. Savannah, help your sister right now, please. There you go. Sorry about that. So the way that it's going right now is that, yes, this train of thought. The kids are all upset at the moment, and they're stir crazy. It's hot outside. We've been outside all day today. So Alora messaged me telling me that Veronica Jude contacted her. Alora helped put this together. So the two of them collaborated to give me something that there's just no words for it. It's so kind. It's so kind. Like, how lucky am I to be surrounded by so much love and support at a time where all I need right now is just like some direction, some clarity, some love and support.
Mommy,
Yeah.
Daddy bumped into me.
Okay, go see Daddy. He's going to help you. And so, honey, just give me a moment, okay? So the way that the situation is at the moment is I don't know too much about the details of this GoFundMe campaign. I've never used GoFundMe before. I don't even know how it works. But if you would like any details, if you would like to support my family and I during this situation, please just contact Alora or Veronica Jude personally. And I don't know really what else to say. I can't see the chat at the moment. My internet here is very, very weak, but like I said, if you want to stay up to date with the details, I posted something on my Patreon page, and it's free for anybody to watch it. It's just a public post. Gordon White of Rune Soup, he too wrote a blog post, so you can look at both of those. You can look at Tasmania Fire Services for updates and information. You can look at Watch My Fire for updates and information. There are plenty of people reporting. Australian ABC is constantly broadcasting, like, this is exactly what's going on. That's for us. That's for us right here. So it's on TV, it's on the radio, it's all you're hearing about. And and it's just, I'm pretty resilient with these types of things, and I've just got to say that I feel so emotionally taxed because I wake up, like I said, every morning going, oh, did the fire go through my property? Did it not? And then it didn't. And then I'm like, and then I turn the radio on and I turn the TV on and I start getting updates. And they're like, oh, but today's going to be a no fire day. It's going to get up to 32 degrees. The wind's going to be in this direction. There is 13% humidity in the air. This is considered an extreme fire danger day. And I'm like, and then we can see today that there is like they call it a finger of fire that's sort of coming down and wrapping around my town. I highlighted this in my Patreon post. I took a photo of the satellite image and I drew a little circle and I put a little cross to let you know where my town is in relation to all the fire that's around our town. Now, fires like this have not been documented in this area for 150 years. This is an extreme weather event. It began because of dry lightning. I didn't even know dry lightning was a thing. I'm so sheltered. I've never lived in a temperate climate for long periods of time. But dry lightning causes fire, and especially on such a dry, arid landscape. And the valley is usually quite green and moist in the wintertime because it gets a lot of rain. But in the summertime, it does what all places in, Australia does, with the exception of the far north that is flooding at the moment due to, cyclones and that kind of extreme weather phenomenon. So there's action going on up north. There's water and fire, which presents itself quite the interesting the interesting dichotomy, geographically and spiritually speaking. So I have been witching up a storm because of this. I have been doing what they call in my tradition, afirmando minha cabeça. I have my coven here, my digital coven on Patreon. They have been lighting their coven candles and doing their thing. They're working with Emanjá and Oshun, two Orisha of the water, Emanjá of the sea, and Oshun of the sweet waters. I'm saying sweet waters because I'm thinking in Portuguese. Água doce is river water. So fresh water. That's the word that I was looking for. My brain was in Portuguese mode. So they're doing that. I have been working with Ogun. Ogun he governs winds, and I've been asking for southerlies, and right now it's southwesterly, and I need that to come around to a more southerly aspect. We need rain. They've basically said these are uncontrollable fires. The fire front itself is more than 30 kilometers in length. To put that into perspective for you, that's about 18 miles in diameter. That's just the front of the fire with all these little fingers of fire coming out at either side. It's burnt thousands, like tens of thousands of hectare of bushland. It's enormous. To see it from a satellite image is something that is like, it's next level. It is absolutely next level, and it sends a chill. 500 firefighters working to control the blaze. This is what it's saying right now. This is the Huonville PTYC.
Entering the urban interface, and they are directly threatening communities. So these fires have potentials to throw embers a kilometre ahead. As we speak, crews are actively fighting fires and protecting properties and patrolling the high-risk areas for spot fires and for any of those bushfire affected areas that we need to put.
So they're updating pretty regularly. And yeah, like I said, there's an enormous amount of people on the floor, on the ground here, and they're just being very amazing. They're overlapping fire crews, and they've been giving us live updates on Facebook from the Huonville PCYC, which is where most of the evacuees are. So that's pretty much all of it. But if you want to read more closely about it, I'm doing updates on Instagram when I can, and the occasional one here on YouTube when I can. YouTube takes a lot more bandwidth, and so at the moment it's very stressful. I grabbed a basket in a panic. I grabbed a basket of tarot decks. And now I'm sitting here going, why did I grab these decks? I had two Mari L, one of which was autographed. I had other limited edition decks, but I could only take so much. And I just went, like, I just grabbed stuff. I just really just grabbed stuff and bolted. I left statuary there and just everything. Beautiful! It's amazing. Yay! So, that's pretty much the situation as it stands at the moment. It's stressful, and I haven't been sleeping. I'm in a comfortable enough bed, but I'm very particular about my pillow, and my pillow's back in Jeeveston. I have like a car packed with like possessions, like my very new blender. I figure if I have to start all over again, having my blender that makes soup might be helpful. And you know, it was just it's a weird mind frame to be in. And gosh, there's just nothing but bad news on the news. Every time I log in to listen, or I look to listen, and I've got to say, like, my beautiful friend Gordon, he and I have been like messaging each other flat out, because and calling and just making sure we both know. His partner James flew to Sydney to go back to work. That's all explained. And I tell you what, he's been feeding us like information too from Sentinel satellites, and we've been getting other satellites, all the local Facebook pages have been really good. Twitter's actually been fantastic. So local residents in the area are uploading like photos and hashtagging, you know, Tas bushfires and, you know, Tas fire services, and knowing where they are, they list where they are. Like, we're on this road, so you can sort of see from their images what's going on in and around our area. And so it's one of those, you know, there's so many things to watch at the moment. There's so many, you know, people reporting on the fire itself, on their own properties, on property damage, photographies coming out from people. There are reporters, local and interstate reporters on the ground in the area, and they're going around with their camera crews, and, you know, they're based in Geeveston. Yesterday I heard that there was somewhere in the vicinity of 11 or 14 fire trucks just established in Geeveston. Now, to give you some context, Geeveston's a 20 town. It's a tiny town. You know, they've got one public school, and all the classrooms are combined because there's so few kids there. So it's such a small little picturesque town with only one little main street, and, you know, it's a very, very small town. It's a very beautiful town, but it's a very small town. So to have such a heavy fire presence in the area is just astounding. And I know on the lead up to the evacuation that the local cafe, which is the Roadhouse, who's run by a beautiful woman named Michelle, she was packing lunches for all the fires, for all the fiery. And yeah, anyway, it's all it's all full on at the moment. So yeah, so I was blown away today when Alora contacted me saying that Veronica Jude and her had put together this GoFundMe page. I never thought that I would be in a position in my life to require something like that, and here I am. It's very humbling, I must say. It's very humbling. And as a Taurus, being without a home, you know, hands up, like, earth signs, full stop. Like, homeless earth signs are the worst. And while I don't feel completely homeless in the sense that I just feel divinely protected at the moment in time, but it's starting to feel a little bit like, well, where do we go now? Where do we go now? Where are we going to go now? So we've been here for 2 nights already. Tonight's our last night in this accommodation. Then we check out, and then where do we go? And then we're going to be there, and then how long are we going to be there for? Now, I heard from Gordon, he's got an Airbnb somewhere, and that's great. And I've said to my husband, I'm happy to camp, you know, at the PCYC evacuation centre along with, you know, 300 other people, probably some of which we know. But I'm never going to be able to sleep there. Not because I'm a snob and I can't sleep in a crowded campsite, because that's my jam. Like, music festivals prepared me for that. Camping at school holidays prepared me for that. So I can sleep, put my earbuds in, and away I go. It's more that I need my creative outlet. I need space. I need peace and quiet. I need tranquility. It's for my mental health more than anything else. So I could camp far away, but then I don't want to be too far away because I don't want to be too far away because I want to be able to be within reach of both information, and if they open up the bridge, I might be able to just dash in there, you know, even for an hour, just to look and just to see if the property's there. As it is, we have a farm there as well. So we have our property, our home property, and we also have our farm. And we had chickens. And we had little chicks, and half of them died. We were only out of there for 2 days. I made sure that they had plenty of water, and I fed them up. I threw extra grain there for them. And when Matt went back 2 days later, half of them were dead. And, you know, it's not okay. You know, when you start up a farm, you're custodians of animals, and there's no evacuating chickens. Let me tell you, people can't even evacuate their livestock. The best they can do is open up the gates and let them fend for themselves, and that's precisely what I did. And it's just it's super stressful anyway. So that's the situation. Once again, I'll mention it another time. Gordon at Rune Soup has written a blog post. That went out yesterday. Today, I wrote a blog post. You may hear talk of me closing my husband's roads in a magical perspective. That absolutely happened. It's a long story that I'll tell at another time. But when I say that magic has really been helping. All predictions for the place to burn have been made, and my family, my digital coven here, in the world, scattered as they may be, they have been pushing hard for rain, working with the Odisha. My coven at home, my mother's coven, they have been working with Oshun specifically, throwing the buzyos and sending me information and throwing the buzyos. I have been here working with Ogun, and Gordon's been doing his thing on his side. And when I told him that I got into a state of panic yesterday because my husband was returning, and they basically said, we're closing the roads, the danger level is too high, we're urging people to evacuate because we cannot have that responsibility on our hands. We're going, if you get stuck there and fire crews have to go out to you to rescue you, they're going to have to leave their post in order to do that. So it's going to be creating, extra work for people. So if you don't have an easily defendable home, then it is in your best interest to evacuate. Now, I don't consider our house to be easily defendable for reasons that I've explained prior, and my husband was still hell-bent on returning there. He's masked up and everything, because you can't breathe there at the moment. The level of smoke in the area is beyond. And so, like, the entire situation is just, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so he wanted to go back there, and I was in a state of panic. His family were calling me going, he's going back, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have already spoke the father card. I've pulled the death card. I've pulled the old haunchy card. I've pulled all the cards going, you're being irresponsible. The danger level is too high. We started to get into a little bit of a disagreement over it because he said, well, don't you care about our home? And I said, no, my order of priority is very different to yours, apparently, because for me, people sit at the very top, property sits below people. And I think that was his stress response, and I don't take anything of what he said seriously, but the situation is out of my hands. And I was sitting at a food court in Hobart while my kids had a milkshake, and I closed my eyes and I did something that I never ever thought that I would do, and that is close my husband's roads. And damn, did I close them. He walked up to that bridge and they said, no, so you can't get through, but they were letting other cars go in, and he was baffled. He kept on calling me every 5 minutes, baffled, going, they're letting people through, but they're not letting me through. Why aren't they letting me through? Again, long stories, revelations came out of that. Like, I was having these intense revelations because that was effective work. Now, I can only see every so often. Every so often I can see they're just disappearing so quickly. I'm sorry, I can't keep up with it all. Right, folks, well, I have just about burnt through all of my allowance of internet for the month. And lucky I get a recharge next month, I think. I don't know. We're January the 30th, and what a complicated month this has been. And so, for those who didn't know this, the lightning strikes that occurred, the dry lightning strikes that began all this fire drama, happened on the day of the eclipse. So for all you magical practitioners out there, you're like, yeah, yeah, I know. So, and anyway, yeah, the blood moon. I can see Alora as the Reaper, but I've got really good people in my corner, and I was so blown away when they offered their support, and Alora messaged me then going, have a look at what's just happened. You've got a good community of people in your corner. And I just didn't even know what to say. I walked over to speak to my husband, and I'm like, can you believe this? And he was just like, and I went down and spoke to my dad, and I'm like, can you believe what these beautiful people are doing for me? And he was like, and I just didn't know, sometimes you don't know how appreciated you are, or how supported you are, or how loved you are. And this is definitely, it's not that you need to do this to show your love and support. It's more that I had no idea. So I'm going to head off now, conserve some more battery, and update loader radio, visit TFS website. So you can listen, you can go to the TFS website. The local Hobart radio will also give you an insight. Twitter is ablaze. So I'm having dinner, yeah. Okay. Well, I better get going, folks. My family are going out for dinner. What did I do? Didn't know what was happening then. All right, I'm heading off. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks so much for all your love and your support, for all your kindness, for all your prayers. It all helps, believe it or not. It all helps. All those prayers for rain. Do your rain dances. Talk to your deity. Send that rain to me. And sending you so much love, guys. So much love.